They have the command I'm talking about at the end of the private shell, it's called separate. And what it does is when you do the union command, can you re-separate things back apart if you had made a mistake, accidentally selected something or didn't want to join them. Now, I've got 3 solids on the screen. I'll just show you how it works. I can go ahead and union all these together. And this happens quite often. You know, maybe I'm sitting in this view, right, and I don't really see the one in the back. And I'm going to go ahead and do a union. And I'm going to just select them all. Now, I've joined all those together. Okay. So notice if I come back on this cylinder and I select it, I get these out here, even though they don't physically touch. Right? It made it all one object. Now, here's what the separate will do for you, is I've got this one, but it's physically touching this one. These are joined forever. Okay. The only way to get them apart is to undo back to that step. Now, if you can't undo back to it, like you've closed the file, start it back up, then you've got to extract edges and do all that stuff to edit this. This one I can separate because it doesn't physically touch these. Okay? So it just breaks them back into separate solids. Okay? So let me just show you how this works. I'll kind of get out here. Keep in mind I now have one solid composed of 3 original solids. Okay? So I'm going to come back up onto here and choose my separate. And I'm going to select this one. The command's over the second you touch it. Okay? You got to hit enter twice to get out. Now, notice here I get this solid and I don't get this one. Now let me try and separate this one, this cylinder in the middle, from my box. These 2 physically touch. I won't be able to get it to work. So I'll choose separate. I'm going to choose that cylinder, and it says down there, you do not have multiple lumps, where a lump is a solid that isn't physically touching. Okay, now if I come back and get out of the command, I select it, notice I'm still getting that cylinder. So that's just a big thing with the separate. If you accidentally grab something, if they physically touch, you're done. Undo back through it if you can. But if they don't physically touch, you can use the separate. All right, after that, 12, it just runs you through some examples. Again, I didn't cover every one in there. I just covered the ones that I find I use time and time again. How many people have gotten through 13? Just show of hands. A couple of you. Kind of a fun chapter. Pretty short. I'll skip that one and come back to it tomorrow. Let's go to chapter 14. Now for this, running this, I'm going to go pull your first assignment up. So I've got a solid right here. I'll switch it to, I haven't used X-ray in a while. X-ray is one of my favorites. Let me use a sketchy so it looks like I drew it, hand drew it. Now I'll use X-ray. Okay, so here's my solid. Now, how do we print this? There's multiple ways of printing this thing. Keep in mind, you could switch this to any view you want, color your faces, maybe set it to this view, whatever. And can I make a picture out of this? Didn't we cover that last class? JPEG out, PDF out? Okay, so I can make a picture of this and email it to somebody if I needed to. If for some reason I had to print this, I'm either going to print it in one of 2 fashions, in a pictorial view or in an orthographic view. Now, if I want to print from model space, by the way, there's another option in here we're getting ready to go in that really kind of is hinted at in your text a little bit, but it hasn't really been shown. If I'm doing a pictorial view and I'm going to do JPEG out on it, wouldn't it be nice to have a 3-point perspective of it? Do I have to build that like we did in last class? No, you don't. It'll do it for you automatically. Let me just show you where the perspective command is. Missy knows, right? You know where this is at.
I do.
Yeah. You might not remember it. Go, if you don't see your view cube, go to the view ribbon and turn it on. And if you go hold your cursor on it, you get this little arrow right down next to it.
Oh.
Choose that drop down arrow. Okay, do you see the perspective view? Okay, so I'm going to choose that. Now your screen might have varying settings on it. You might get a horizon line, you might get like mine where it's just kind of solid. This is now being displayed in a 3-point perspective. It's kind of hard to see on this guy because it's a small object. Let me make this thing pop up here. I'm going to go to my front view. Now you can see my horizon line. And you can see that this thing is now in a 3-point based on, you can see all axes converge. Now, this is a very tough view to draw in. So almost nobody I know works in this view. It's only when you want to get a picture of something. If you had a big object, it'd be very obvious what was going on with this. Now, again, this is just a viewing deal. So I'm going to go back and turn this back into a parallel perspective so that I see it in this form. All right, now what we're going to talk about is how do I get a print with the title block on this guy. We're going to print out of Paperspace. Chapter 14 runs you through a bunch of this stuff. We're not going to cover all of it today. We're going to take it in stages. Today I'm just going to give you enough information you can print your first 2 drawings. So let's go to Paperspace. Set your solid, by the way. Usually you want it set to whatever UCS is going to be your front view. Although you don't have to. Okay, so go to Paperspace. As a general rule, you do not want to use viewports when you're dealing with solids. Okay, you're going to find out later that sometimes we do use viewports with solids depending on the look we want. But as a general rule, immediately delete your viewport. Okay? Now viewports are going to cause you a lot of problems because they hold on to visual styles like conceptual, realistic, X-ray, sketchy, all of these. Those variables are attached to viewports. Just like I think, Becca, you asked about line sight scale. Viewports that's attached to viewports depending on the scale. But we want to get rid of that thing. Just get rid of it. Now, we're still going to go to our layout tab. Remember, that appears whenever you go to Paperspace. You got your layout tab up on your ribbons. Go to that tab.
What tab was that?
Oh,
Layout.
Layout.
We've dealt with this area right here to this point. This is our viewports area. Now what we're going to deal with is from here on out. Okay. This is for printing with 3D solids. The main command is called the view base command. And we've got a whole bunch of different options for sections, details, these types of things that it will cut for us. So we're going to come into those in stages. I'm not going to cover all of them today. We'd be here forever. But what you're going to start with is the base right here. It just says base. It's really the view base command. Go ahead and just click on that. You get an option. We're going to come from Model Space. You can link this with Inventor and grab solids from other programs and stuff. Inventor is AutoCAD's answer to SolidWorks. It's specifically a mechanical engineering 3D program. By the way, I think it's on your desktop if you ever wanted to play with it. Okay, so just choose Model Space. You should see a picture of your model. Whatever drawing you started with, it has to be a solid. View base does not display 2D line work. Okay, so you have your solid. Now on your first one, you're only doing one view. So let's just click one spot. Just get somewhere towards the middle. Now you have a whole bunch of options that go with this, but generally what I'll do is I'll place a view and then reactivate it and edit it, because many times I want different views. So for now, let's just exit out of it. So we're going to hit enter to exit out. You got to hit enter twice. You should now see a picture of your model. Now, what we need to do is edit this, because I asked you to put this in a pictorial view. So again, I'm going to come in and click on it twice. This then opens an editing feature. You should see your ribbon switch to this up here. Notice you didn't have a viewport. You dealt with the model, and I've got this little rectangle around it. This rectangle will always size itself to whatever the model is. It's like a viewport, but it's not. I don't know how to describe it. You can't edit it. It's just there. It's how it's looking at it.
What does it size itself to?
Whatever you size your model is.
Okay.
If I want to activate this model, if I click anywhere inside that rectangle, I get this thing activated. If you click out over here, it's not like a viewport where we just double click to activate. Okay, I've got to get on the model to do it. All right, so first thing we want to do is come in and say, well, how do we want to look at it? So let's deal with our, let's deal with orientation first. So first we want to get it to the view we want. Go ahead and hit escape if you would. Click on it one time. Okay, if you clicked on it once, you have two grips there. The rectangle grip just allows you to move it. Okay, so you can place it wherever you want on the paper. Just eyeball it approximately to the center. The one that's got an arrow attaches to your annotation scales. Okay, so if you click your drop down arrow, I don't know what you got for a scale. I'm going to put mine, it looks like maybe 1 to 4. Let's go big. Go 1 to 1. So you can play with your scale and you'll notice that it does move the object. Resizes the object, I guess would be a better way to say it. Now I got to remember how to get the orientation here. How do I do that? Can't remember all of a sudden. View, hidden lines, visibility, where the heck is that? Select. Hold on, give me a second here. Darn. Well, I can't find out where it's at right now. Apologize for that. We want this in a pictorial view. So it's an easy fix. Grab it and hit delete. We'll start over. Sorry, I apologize for that. So delete it. Let's go back to the base command from model space. Let's switch the orientation first. So right here, I haven't placed the model down anywhere. Do you see the orientation option down below? So I'm going to hit O, enter. And for this guy, the way I drew it, I think a northeast ISO works pretty well. You might have to play with your ISO views to get what your view, depending on what you had for a front. Once I like that, then I'm going to click it. Now keep in mind, when you get it, you still got all these options. You can do all these editing things here if you want. You can scale, you can do your hidden lines, you can do all that here. You can also do it later. I'm pretty sure there's a way to switch orientation later too, I just don't know what it is right now. Now if you hit enter, it's going to try and project off of that to create another view for you. Just hit enter again and it terminates the command. So you now should be looking at something like this, where I see it as it would appear with a wireframe. Now, let's edit this view. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is switch my scale. I want this at 1:1. Okay, so I left click it once, choose my drop down arrow right here, set my scale 1:1. Then let's double click it and let's kind of deal with how these, because this isn't a very good pictorial view. Maybe you want the inline so it looks three-dimensional, but I don't. Okay, so I'm going to come up here and show visible lines. Keep in mind you can do shaded or whatever you wish. I think, was it Majid and David? I can't remember who was asking yesterday. We got a tangent edge right here. What do we do with tangent edges when we display them? When I've got a linear surface that comes into a tangent edge, we have a convention on that, right? What is that convention?
Don't show it.
You don't show it. Okay? And on a solid, it's going to. It's going to show it to you. But you have an option of turning this off also. It's under this edge visibility right here. So I'm going to take off tangent edge, say OK. Now I should be looking at this view. Keep in mind, I'm not editing the model whatsoever. It's just giving me a view of the model. I think for your first drawing, this is the look we want. Make sure it's fairly well centered. Print it at a scale of 1:1. This is now ready to print, just like normal. So here I do Control P, choose my deal, and print. And this is the result you're going to get. So drawing one. Put it in this good isometric orientation. Turn off the hidden lines and tangent lines. Plot it with your title block, just like normal. Drawing two. Same orientation. But you do have extra credit if you attach the mass properties of it.
Ooh.
You can extract those, put them into a Word document, and attach them into here. Now, when I say mass properties, what are those? I'm not going to answer that question because it's extra credit. I will tell you, it's in your book. And it's awesome stuff. I mean, not as a drafting sense, but as an engineering tool, it is a wonderful thing. Those of you that have taken some advanced math, you probably spent upwards of 10 credits or 2 years, whatever it took you to get through those credits to figure out how to get centroids and moments of inertia and these types of things, which are mathematical deals. You can get them with a click of a button because you've got the geometry sitting here and it will calculate it for you. And guess what? There's no mistakes from you hitting a bad button halfway through and you got to redo everything.
That's how we used to check our homework. We'd draw it up on the computer and then check it.
Mm-hmm. Great stuff. So that's first two assignments. I want to stop there for today.
Yeah.
So tomorrow we'll come back and deal with chapter 13, and we're going to jump through a few more of the options on the view base and how we dimension on 3D solids tomorrow. So it's more of 14, even though dimensioning is kind of all over the place here. Any questions for me? All right, thanks for your time. I hope you got some editing tips today that might aid you in completing your assignments. You don't have enough to print all the way through 4 yet, but if you finish drawing and you're up through chapter, we did 14, we skipped 15, I believe, don't we? And then go, where's my syllabus? Yeah, we go to 16, which is rendering. If you get through 14, and you've got all your objects drawn, first 4 assignments, you've got your first 2 printed. If you get to that stage, come see me, and I will give you your next assignment. Now I'm done. Thanks.
Thank you.
Have fun with this, kid.